Welcome, everyone. This is the Parent-Teacher Conference tips and resources for parents as they're preparing for the conferences that are coming up next month. So again, the conferences will be in November. So what are parent-teacher conferences? Parent-teacher conferences are 20 minutes in length, and they are one-on-one meetings with the teacher, and they will be held on the 12th and 13th of November, usually between the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And during this time, you as a parent and the classroom teacher will have conversations regarding your child's academic, social, emotional, and behavioral process. Honestly, this is a great time for you to check in with the teacher and have conversations with them regarding any questions or concerns you might have. And this is your time that is fully designated for you. It is important because we have one scheduled or planned conference date per year. You are welcome to ask your teacher to meet with you throughout the course of the school year. This is the one time that the teachers have time and the parents have time to go in for a planned conference. It's also important because parents can then partner with their child's classroom teacher in their child's education. Information will be shared with the teacher regarding your child's progress, your child's strengths, what are some areas of growth they might have. They might show you some data or evidence of what they've been doing in class. So you can also learn more about what you can do to support your child at home. You can ask many questions of the teacher during this time. And the conference is a great check-in between parent and teacher regarding the child's progress. There is another type of conference, and those conferences are also called student-led conference. So in grades kindergarten through 3, kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, the teacher will be doing the presentation and sharing information. In 4th and 5th grade, your child will create most likely a PowerPoint or some kind of a presentation, and they will share that information with you. They will talk about their strengths, their growth. And this is a form that data has shown that really helps build your child's sense of advocacy and growth. So the child will share work with you. Now, that does not mean that you cannot ask the teacher questions. We'll talk more about that in later slides. So what is discussed during this time? Your classroom teacher will share the child's academic, behavioral, and social progress. They may show you some pieces of evidence to show you how your child is doing, how your child is growing. Maybe they will point out some areas where your child has areas of growth that they can be doing. So this is a great opportunity for you as a parent to share some goals you may have, some concerns you may have, also to ask many questions. And looking at your registration form, many of you had questions that you'll put in the registration form, and quite honestly, most of them are questions that would be welcomed by a teacher for you to ask, and then you and that teacher can discuss the answers. So in the United States, because elementary school really focuses on the whole child, the teacher will definitely discuss all aspects of the child's development. And many teachers are going to share some evidence of writing samples, math samples, and then especially in the lower grades, kindergarten, first grade, the teacher will definitely spend a little bit more time talking about behavioral and social, emotional growth, the friends in the class, how are they behaving, things like that. So it's a really great time for parents to have to talk to the teacher about their goals. So keep that in mind. So preparing for the conference. The first thing we tell parents is talk to your child, because very often parents, as they are supporting their child, the curriculum that we have in our schools, because we don't really have that many books. In math, they come home with some packets, and in English, you're going literacy and writing, you might see a little bit more papers coming home. But in general, for families who grew up in other states or in other countries where the classrooms had books, textbooks, this is a little bit hard because they don't have some kind of tangible piece of something to for them to look at and say, oh, this is a curriculum, this is what they're doing, this is what they did in class today, this is what they're going to do next. And so for many parents, we hear very often that they are a little bit frustrated because they don't know what's going on in school. So that's why we really recommend that you talk to your child to find out what's going on. So this way you kind of know what kind of questions to ask. Ask your child, what do you like most about school? What subject or lesson do you like the most? What do you think you're good at? What does the teacher do to help you? What are the students in your class like? Who do you like to work or play at? Because you're gathering more information. And as your child answers those questions, they might share information for you to better understand how your child is doing behaviorally, socially, or academically in class. Then your teacher will also be sending out newsletters. So every week, your teacher sends out a newsletter. So spend some time looking at that newsletter so then you know what is going on in the classroom. And then if you need to look up something in math, because they'll send links to look up some curriculum, you can look more into that at that time. Preparing for the conference. So at the parent teacher conferences, here are some things you could discuss with a teacher. What does my child enjoy the most about the school or the classroom? What is the most challenging item or thing for my child to do in the class? Maybe it's staying in their seat, maybe it's some kind of math skill, maybe they don't know their multiplication facts, maybe they're struggling with making friends. So the teacher can have a conversation with you so you can ask those kinds of questions with the for the teacher. So what are the child's strengths and what areas are difficult? What has helped your child learn successfully in the past is something you could share with the teacher. So parents are encouraged to really have this conversation, a discussion with the teacher, and also it's really helpful. I always recommend this to parents. If you can, write your questions down. And if you write your questions on a piece of paper, take a photo of it so you don't forget them, or write your questions on your email so that you can read the questions to yourself. Another tip for you as a parent is I would send my questions. If I were you, I would send my questions to the teacher and say, I'm looking forward to meeting you at this time. Here are some of the questions I have, and I hope that we have some time to go over it. So this way, you're giving the teacher a heads up that here are some questions that you might have, and then if they need to look up any evidence, they can prepare for that. Now, you do not have to do this. This is not required. If you want, you can just go to the meeting and then ask the teacher questions about that. The only reason I recommend giving the teachers a heads up is so that they have some time to prepare if they need to look for evidence or gather any materials to answer your question. But I always recommend that as you start the meeting, as the teacher welcomes you, before you go too far into the meeting, let the teacher know what kind of questions you have. Because if you're silent, sometimes the teacher will talk and share information, and then you won't have time to really ask questions and to engage in a conversation with the teacher. So, one of the things you'll hear me saying over and over again is we really are trying to encourage parents to have a conversation with a teacher so that it's more productive. So, you get some information and something out of it. So, again, as we said, look for in the take home folder also. So every Friday, your teacher will have papers in a folder called a take home folder. Look for that. This past last week, you should have received an email on if your child is in grades 1 or 2, the email was sent on October 9th. And if your child is in grades 3, 4, or 5, you would have received this email on October 10th. And this email came from Shelley Fry from the Issaquah School District. And the subject line was Important ISD Student Test Score Report. So that email provided you a comprehensive look as to how your child did on their iReady test earlier this year when they took the test. It will also have their SBA scores from last year if your child is a fourth or fifth grader. The reason that's important is it gives you a better understanding of how your child is doing compared to a whole bunch of other kids, right? Because it shows you how your child is doing if they're on task, which would be three or higher, like on grade level, that is, or if they're below grade level. So then that would also give you information as to what kind of questions you can ask. So if your child has a one or two in any of the sections going into your conversation, you will be ready to ask the teacher, how can I help them on this section of the test, on this, on specific areas where they might be weak in. The iReady is an assessment. It's not really a grade that's going to appear on their report card, 100% not going to be on their transcripts or anything like that for middle school or high school or colleges, but it's a snapshot at that moment in time. How is your child doing? And it's great because the teachers then use this assessment to figure out how your child is doing and what areas they are struggling in and how they can then work with it. And using this data from the iReady score, very often they might put them in different groups in the class. And then you, in that small group, the teacher might do more dedicated, specific lessons on that part that your child is behind on or needs help. So again, the assessment is used to help divide the class into different groups, and based on where what your child needs to catch up or where they are, the teacher works with different small groups, sometimes even an individual person, to help them fill the holes and any gaps of learning they might have. So that's one of the reasons why the iReady is helpful. Also, in that email, and the bottom of that email are wonderful resources. So I would definitely look at that email because very often the key question parents ask is, what can I do to support my child at home? Well, in that email, there are a lot of tips on what parents can do to help your child at home. So I just don't want you to waste your time and not look through that and then go to the teacher and say, what can I do? And then the teacher is going to say, oh, I in the iReady email, there's some tips. So you can say yes, and, or you can say, are there any apps or specific questions about an app you're interested in that's in Clever that you want to talk about? Another thing you can do to help prepare if you have specific questions about learning goals or curriculum, you can visit the school district website, and I can show you where that is in a few minutes. And then you can look at your child's curriculum and what they should be learning, and then just better understand the progress of what's the expectation of the curriculum at that time. Because some parents even say, I don't even know where they are or what they need to know. So this just gives you a better foundation as to what expectations. So parent request options. If you are a parent that maybe you can understand English, but you're really not comfortable speaking it, you are welcome to ask for an interpreter. The school can provide you an interpreter, an in-person. In-person interpreters are really hard to find, so it's usually a telephone interpreter or an interpreter via telecommunication. It's on the TV screen, an interpreter will show up. Sometimes the school is trying to hire more in-person interpreters, so that might be possible. But honestly, this is no cost to you, and the school has a system and how to help parents with that. So ask for an in-person interpreter if needed. Parents also have the right to request the meeting via Zoom or Microsoft Teams, and the teacher will send you the link or invite to join if Microsoft Teams is something that you prefer doing. Just because for some parents it's really hard to leave work or to do the traffic if they are somewhere that there's lots of traffic at that time. So if that's more convenient for you, that is an option. We always believe that in person creates a better relationship. So it's up to you, however. Also, if your child has an additional teacher, in the registration form, many of you ask questions about the MLL teacher, and that is a multilingual learner. And so if your child has an MLL teacher, will that MLL teacher be at the conference, or is it possible for you to ask the MLL teacher to meet and chat with you before or after the meeting? That is also an option. It's not guaranteed, but that might be something that you could do. Some students could also be in a program called Learning Assistant Program, and those teachers LAP, and this is for students who might need additional help in reading and in math. And so if your child is in the LAP program, you can also see if that LAP teacher is available for you to stop by and chat with them about your progress, about your child's progress. So those are the different kinds of questions you can ask of the teacher or the other teachers, the ML teacher or the lab teacher, to see if they will be, because this way you'll get a comprehensive understanding of how my child is doing in the classroom versus these additional programs that they might be in because they need additional help or support. So understanding test scores. So if your child is in grades kindergarten, sorry, not kindergarten, kindergartners did not take the test. For children in first to fifth grade, when you receive that email, you will have two scores in here, and you also have percentages, but look at the score. If the score, so it's going to be a score anywhere from 1.0 to 4 point something. Usually it's like 4.2, 4.9. I've never seen, and I don't think the school has seen any scores above 4.2 something. And so look at the scores. If your child's score is 3.0 and above, those are great scores. Okay. So that's at level, at standards, the meeting standards, or they're above standards. The concern may be if you're looking at your iReady scores and your child is in the 2 range or in the 1 range. And if your child is in either one of those areas, it indicates that your child is not on grade level. So in the Issaquah School District, we do not rank children. We do not say, oh, he's the highest in the class. Or I know growing up in India, we were ranked, and very often the teacher would say the 5th or 6th or 1st or 2nd. And very often or very often parents go into these meetings and they want to know how their child is doing compared to their classmates. And the teacher is never going to give you that information. What they will tell you is that your child is at grade level, above grade level, or approaching grade level. So that's the kind of information, or below grade level if that's the case. So that's the kind of information your teacher will provide for you at the conference. So that email that you should have received last week, and Shelley Fry, the woman who sent that email, sent them to every single school child in first grade to fifth grade. So look for that email. And then when you see that, it also says to get more information and to understand the iReady scores, to go to this website to get more information. And so there's a website that gives you more information about it. And this is what the body of the email looks like, what those letters look like, and it's in the body. And you can right click if you need to translate it, or if you need help understanding it, you can also call a family liaison. I'll give you the link to who they are to better help you at understand that or read what it means. Now, you can also, how can I use this, or what can I do at home from here? You can also get some information here on how can you use this information to help your child at home. So the website has a lot of information on iReady. So we have one link on understanding the scores, and then we also have some links on what can you do. Click here to learn more about using the iReady at home, and then also what can you do at home, and what are your other resources. So that's some information over there regarding the iReady. Now, at the conference, it is very, very important that when you see what your conference time is, you arrive 5 minutes earlier or right on time, and that is you've gone straight, you're in front of the classroom on time. Because the teachers very often have all of their conferences scheduled. And so if you're running late, that is no guarantee that you're going to have extra time because your conference started late. So make sure that you arrive on time or early. The teacher, you're going to wait outside the classroom. The teacher will welcome you into the classroom. Let the teacher know if you have any questions as you start the meeting, so they are sure to give you some time to get those questions answered. Now, I'm going to show you two videos. By the way, if you do not hear any sound, please put a note. I turned the sound on when I shared my screen. I just want to make sure you can hear it. So we'll talk about the difference between the two videos in a second. One second. Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a second, and I'm going to share it again.
Math scores. She did very well. And then over here I have some of her writing that she's been working on. And she does need to work a little bit more on her conventions and her spelling. They did finish their opinion writing recently, and Elena had a good voice, but she does need to work on using more transition sentences. But in general, she wrote a really good paper.
Thank you.
And this is our calendar for the year. We do have a field trip upcoming in March, so you'll want to go ahead and get that paperwork filled out and turned in as soon as possible.
Okay, do that.
Great. And do you have any other questions for me about your child?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate having you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, come on in. It's nice to meet you.
So one of the reasons we share this video is that this is an example of a video that we don't think has productive conversation and dialogue between the teacher and the parent. The teacher is the one doing all the questions. The parent is very passive, taking the information, and is not actively engaging. So some parents might be nervous, they might be hesitant, or sometimes we believe that they're just unsure as to what kind of questions to ask, if it's okay to ask questions or not. I've been doing this presentation now this is my 8th year. My first and second year, after we do a live demonstration, because we used to do this event live, I would have parents come up to me afterwards and say, is it okay for me to ask questions of the teacher? And the answer is yes, because some people have so much fear about asking the teacher questions and if their questions are appropriate. So we just want to make sure you're watching videos or you're seeing examples of what it could be, which this one that I just showed you is not a very good example of what a conference would look like. And let's look at this video and see what what your conference could sound like. That would be a much better result for you as a parent to get information. Okay.
Nice to meet you. I'm have a seat. Thank you. Well, I've been looking forward to meeting with you. So I have a few things to show you for today.
Sorry, everyone, technical difficulties. Let's see if I can get this video to play. There we go. Okay.
Hi.
Come on in. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for
Have a
having me.
seat. So thank you for coming. I've been looking forward to meeting with you, and I do have a few things to show you. Is there anything that you would like to see first?
So we were interested in her recent math tests and understanding how she did on it.
Great. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you a little bit about her math test. I have her scores right here. So she's doing really well with adding money. The areas that I see that she's still working on is understanding her math vocabulary. So that can create some problems with her math. And then she's having some problems with adding some 3-digit numbers.
Okay. How can we help her at home?
I actually have some things that you can use at home. So you can work with her a little bit each night. And so then we can check back with each other in a little bit here and then see how she's progressing.
That's great. Thank you.
Of course. And is there any other questions that you have for me about Elena?
Does she have friends?
Oh, that's a great question. So yeah, of course she does. I get to see her at lunch and she's talking with her friends. She works with her classmates in class, and so she works really well with groups. She always participates in our class discussion. She raises her hands, and I would say she's a really good learning partner and is really good at staying on topic.
Okay, great. Does she understand what you're she just had a math test, I know. Does she understand what you're currently doing in math? Is she learning that unit? Is she having a hard time with her homework?
I use a lot of strategies with our students who are our English language learners, and then I give them some extra supports, and then we also have our ELL teacher come in and gets to work with them twice a week, so she's getting to have some extra support there. And I do try to check in with her often and make sure that she's understanding, and her written work shows that she's getting to understand what we're learning, so I feel good about that.
Great. I would love to volunteer in the classroom.
Oh, great, yeah. So here's some information about volunteering in our schools. The paperwork does need to be completed online, so you'll want to go ahead and do that and let me know as soon as you get that done, and then we can arrange for a time for you to volunteer.
Okay, thank you for the information. My daughter is really enjoying you as a teacher.
Oh, thank you. We enjoy having Elena in class as well.
I would love to meet with you again in a few months to check on her and her math and progress. Is that possible?
Yeah, I really feel like after this next unit test would be a great time for us to check in with each other and see how she's progressing with her math.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming in.
So in watching these two videos, I just want to make sure you all recognize that these are very real videos or examples of what can happen sometimes at parent-teacher conferences. And what we want and what our hope is that you will have more of the second video experience, where you are interacting and going back and forth, chatting with the teacher, asking questions that are very important to you, rather than being a passive participant in the meeting. So as you can see, the teacher was able to produce some information because, and that is more feasible usually. The teacher kind of knows that you have certain questions or what the questions might be. Now, for student-led conferences, the same thing. The student is leading the conference, but if you have specific questions that you don't think it's appropriate for you to ask your child to answer at the conference, there are definitely questions you can ask your child at the conference to help them, definitely going to give them positive feedback on how they did in the presentation. But if there are some questions that you just want from the teacher, you do have that option. And for student-led conference especially, you might want to send that email to the teacher saying, I can't wait for your son to do the presentation, and if you don't mind, I also have a couple questions So if you would save a few minutes so that you have time to ask those questions at the end of your presentation. So just kind of keep that in mind as to how you might work through that if you have questions at the conferences. So the point of showing you the two videos is to show you that parent participation and involvement is key. That not to show you what a good or bad conference is like, but it's just how you can get so much more out of this experience based on how you show up and you asking questions that are relevant to you. Every conference is going to look different. One of the things to note about the videos I showed you is all three of us have two or three children in the class, and so in the school. So all three of us have done parent teacher conferences at elementary schools. So we've gone through these conferences and we wrote those video skits based on our experiences on what works and what doesn't work. So this is from experienced parents showing you, giving you some tips on how to really have a productive conference. Now, after the conference, you're going to go back home. You're going to talk to your child about what happened at the conference. You're going to let your child know about some of the goals or plans you made with the teacher to support their learning. So, having that conversation with the child is great. You can also follow up with some of the questions you asked during the conference, either depending on what the teacher said. If the teacher said to check back in them in a month, send them an email in a month, or you can follow up with an email, thank them for the conference, and say, I hope you don't mind, but I plan on emailing you at 2 months, 2 weeks, whenever, just to check on this goal or this piece of feedback that we talked about. What used to happen is we used to do these conferences when the report card came out. So couple years ago, report cards came out at the end of November, and we'd had conferences at the end of November to talk about your child's report card and progress. Now we've moved the report card to the end of January. So this is just a brief snapshot of how your child progressed through the course of the midway through the semester. Now you're going to get another snapshot and at the end of the semester to see how your child's doing. If you have questions when you get the report card at the end of January, that would also be a great time to reach out to the teacher, talk about some of the goals, some of the things you talked about, and then do a check-in at that time, okay? Or you could wait any point in the new year to again check in with the teacher. But just remember, while we only have one scheduled conference during the course of the year, you are welcome to email the teacher and ask for another conference or phone meeting at any time through the course of the year. So talk to your child about what they do often. Check their backpack to get those handouts. Check the teacher Clever page, not website, to see what they're doing. Also in the video, we talked about volunteer opportunities. So that's one of the things you can talk to the classroom teacher and see what are some opportunities for you to participate in the classroom. Maybe there's some events, activities, or work you can do, or field trips if that's an option. And also join the PTA if you can, because the PTA very often shares really great opportunities on how you can form a community or talk to other families in the school to get more information. And they very often send emails or reminders. Personally, I have a child in middle and high school. I like the PTA just because, especially in the high school, because there are so many deadlines and things happening in high school, and it helps me keep up with what I need to know and remind me about the school, just because sometimes so much is going on. And then as we come up to the wrapping up this presentation, few reminders. Again, it's really important that we are on time since teachers have back-to-back meetings. One of the parents asked me this question about childcare, and the answer is children, especially in kindergarten to third grade children, are not invited to the meeting. And so it's really important that you see if you can find someone to take care of your child for that 20-minute or whatever time period you're going to be out from home. Very often families will work with neighbors and friends, and so they swap during that conference time so that they have someone to help them cover each other's kids during that conference time. Another one, I got at least 15, 20 people ask me this, but a lot of families are asking for help setting up a conference. So if you're not sure how to set up your conference, you are welcome to email the classroom teacher and just say, hey, I'm not sure how to set up my conference. The teacher and the school should have sent you some instructions on how to set up your conferences. Most schools have the conference scheduler open, and if they don't have it open by now, they will definitely have it open in the next 5 days. So if you're not sure, you can email your child's teacher and say, our conference is open so I can schedule my conference? And if so, could you please send me the directions? And then the teacher will send you the directions. Important note for you is conference are scheduled in family access. So you have to sign into family access. There is a conference scheduler tab on the left. You're going to click on it and then you will click on look at times as a tab that says look for available times. And then you will see multiple times that are available. You're going to click on the time, and then that will be your time for conferences. Another question that has come up is, can I schedule if I have multiple children? How do I do this? And the answer is you go to each one of your children's tabs and schedule their conference. When my children, I have two children, when they were in elementary school, I would schedule one, I'd look at both of them, find out a time where there were similar times so that I didn't have to go home and come back. Um, I'm going to recommend that you give yourself at least a 10-15 minute break in between because I thought I was being smart and I scheduled one and then I gave myself 5 minutes for the next one. And it honestly wasn't enough because the teacher was a little bit chatty and so were we. And then by the time we walked to the next one, we were a couple minutes late. So just it depends on you. If you're totally fine stopping on time and going to the next one and starting on time, but just keep that in mind. Give yourself a few minutes. Don't do it so back to back that you might miss out on talking to the teacher on either end. And then finally, if you need a interpreter, so let's say you speak English, but your spouse does not speak English, you still have the opportunity to ask for an interpreter. You can send an email to the teacher and say, hey, I would need an interpreter for this conference just to make sure that I'm getting most out of it. Because sometimes when you're speaking to a teacher, your emotions are come up and you're not sure, you're nervous. So whatever you need. So just keep in mind, what do you need to get this to be the most productive for yourself as the parent? Because we as a school need to make sure we're we're required by OSBI to provide interpreters for parent teacher conferences. So this is not going to cost you anything, and this is part of what we do. And in here, I have a little email, just a sample email on what kind of email you can send to the teacher to help you with scheduling conferences and asking for an interpreter. So this is just an example because I know some parents may not be sure how to ask or what to ask or how to send the email. So this is just an example for you. So again, we're going to check with your child after the conferences. The very last step, couple months from now, you'll be checking your child's report card. Again, it's on family access and it'll be available very end of January, early February, sometime in that range. And then if you want, you are welcome to ask for the teacher to have a meeting on the phone, on Zoom, on person in a couple months to just do another check-in because the school itself is not going to schedule one for you. So the school does not have any other official parent-teacher conference besides the one in November. So here I have answered completed all the slide information that I have for you. And at this time, if you want, you can type up a question in the chat and send it to me, or you can unmute yourself and turn your screen on, or just unmute, whichever you're most comfortable with, and ask your questions. Now, I have also put in the feedback form in the chat, so this way you can ask me questions. You can complete the feedback form to get the slide deck. So a couple questions that were asked in the registration form was, how do we know when our child needs academic support at home to help them improve in the classroom? If they keep saying everything is fine and that the homework is not graded or required. So those are the kinds of discussions you're going to have with the teacher. So ask the teacher that question. And then another question was scheduling for different kids. So make sure you go to each tab in Family Access and schedule for each child separately. And yes, you can do it back to back, but just try to give yourself some time. When do we know it's time to register for conferences? Your teacher's classroom newsletter will have something about that, or the school will have sent an email saying conference scheduler is open. If you're not sure, please take some time and ask. You can take a minute and just email the teacher and say, is conference scheduler open? And ask them what time or when it will be open if it's not open yet. But I know many schools it is open. I had several questions regarding the ML program. So if you have questions about the ML program, I would strongly encourage you to let the ML teacher, the multilingual teacher, know that. And then you can see if you can have a conversation with the ML teacher about the questions you have. And then there was a question about childcare, and unfortunately, the school does not offer childcare. And so that is something that the parent needs to look for. And you can ask the teacher if you have any questions about that. But in general, we don't have students attending parent teacher conferences. Another question asked was, what kind of subjects will the teacher go over during conferences? So again, as I mentioned earlier, it's the conference is about the academic, social, and behavioral. It's really about the whole child. What does teacher expect from parents during the conference? And the same thing. So the teacher is hoping to share some information about how their child is doing, and then the teacher is also expecting that you will have some questions and you will engage in a discussion regarding your child's progress and how they're doing. Are there any subjects we shouldn't bring up during the conference? I'm not sure how to answer that. The one thing I will say is sometimes, even for me as a middle school teacher, sometimes parents would say, what is my child's rank in class? Or they would keep on asking, how's my child doing? And then I'd say, oh, he has an A. Or elementary school teacher might say he has a 3 or a 4. And they'd say, no, 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 how are they doing? And what they were looking for is the ranking or comparison with other students. In the US, we don't compare our students with the whole class. We just focus on, is your child above standards, meeting standards, approaching standards, or below standards? And so it's all about standard based grading. So we're not really comparing our children or ranking them, especially in the elementary school. Uh, how is my kid doing with her studies, with her friends? That's a great question. That is literally one of the great questions you can ask at parent teacher conferences. School tests. Now, that is a great question also. Remember, the iReady is the big one, and you already have the results. So make sure you're looking at the data from that. And the teachers have adopted a new curriculum called Benchmark. And I know that some teachers are working on how to share some of those results with families, and maybe they won't, but the teacher can just verbally tell you if there was an assessment, how the child did, or you can ask the teacher, just how did my child do, if you're not able to see or the teacher's not able to share the actual document, the paper with you. So, what kind of insights the teacher would provide, and it's really the sharing insights regarding the strengths and areas of growth for your child, behavior, what's going on. So, and then finally, several questions again on the parents who need help scheduling. And what I will do is, if you still need help scheduling, please take a moment and fill out my form, and I will email the teacher and ask them to help you and just CC you in on it, so the teacher knows that you need help scheduling. Also, we have family liaisons, and I can have one of the family liaisons reach out to see what kind of questions you may have. I told you that I'd show you where the elementary information is posted. Before you go, you may also want to look at the elementary school learning. This is a curriculum. So many parents always wonder, well, what is my child learning? So if you go to the school district website, we have everything that your child is learning on the website. And many parents don't know about this uh, area, and it has a lot of information in there. So it tells you what the student will be doing, and then also what the teacher is doing. And so there's a lot of resources. And again, this is under academics. So you're going to go to academics on this top tab, and then you're going to elementary school learning, and then you're going to the different grades. Okay. So that's how you're going to get more information regarding the curriculum. And then this is the family partnership page and the family partnership team, which I am part of. So we have different events and we have family liaisons, and the liaisons are different schools. And here's all our contact information. So if you have any follow-up questions, you're welcome to reach out to any one of us with more information for more information. And then finally, what I wanted to share is maybe you just want to ask me some specific questions or spend more time having a chat, or you have other questions, because in the registration form that you did, some of you asked questions on English language development or learning more about school system or course selection or pathways in middle school and high school. So those are some of the questions I will be able to address when I do an event next week on October 23rd, and it's called Family Connections. I don't have a big slide deck like this. Usually parents just ask questions and then I answer them, and I show them areas on the website where they can go into more depth, or if it's a conversation that's going to be a while, then I can set up an appointment to meet with them at a later date, either in person or on the phone or on Zoom to answer their questions. So there are many options. And one of the main things I want you all to get as you're listening to this presentation is you're not alone. There's a lot of support for you from the classroom teacher, but also from other staff that wants to help you navigate the schools and help you understand what's going on. So just let us know how we can help you. And with that, I am going to the end of the slide deck. I'll just go back to, please take a few minutes. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording. Okay.